GladiatorsNYC. We're the New York's premier organization in full contact medieval armored combat as practiced by organizations like the International Medieval Combat Federation. And today we are going to have a lecture on the new rules from that particular organization, on the rules of the melee or group fights. Now, before we begin, for the new people here, I just want to go over a few things of what this is and this is not. This isn't a live-action role-playing thing. It's not a LARP. Character building is not a thing. Some people like to go in with character names and stuff. I'm known as Captain Zord for various reasons, but we're not about that. It's about the sport of fighting. This is not self-defense, though we will teach you how to hit someone in the head with a stick, which may give you confidence to walk through dangerous neighborhoods and not get into fights. But I'm not going to guarantee that. We're not marketing that. That's not what we're here for. Whether or not this is a martial art is a wonderful discussion to have over beers, but I don't have any beer, so we can talk about it later. But this is a full contact combat sport, as much as boxing or MMA or kickboxing or Muay Thai is a full contact sport where we are allowed to fight as hard and as fast and with as much intention as we are physically possible of doing, only we do it with steel weapons while wearing steel armor. So, without any further ado, the International Medieval Combat Federation rules and regulations for group categories. By that they mean group fights. Sometimes it's called melee, sometimes it's called brouage, which is an old French word for tournament melees. Now, the idea of these rules are for safety and to come close to simulating what it would be like to fight in a tournament, not necessarily a real battle. I mean, specifically not a real battle. And many of these rules are based on or happen to be a lot like the rules that were actually used in the Middle Ages, because they didn't like to die in their tournaments either. All right, so participants, further referred to as fighters, while entering the IMCF group categories competition, hereby accept this rule set. All fighters must be aware of the risk of physical danger, as is in all combat sports, and will not pursue legal actions due to injuries sustained during the fight against organizers or opponents. Are you all okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay. All right, good. All fighters should enter the competition without unattended injuries, cannot have other health adversities, and are not allowed to compete intoxicated, under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or performance-enhancing drugs, unless specifically prescribed by a medical professional. Okay, that's the general for all types of fighting. Now, there's certain equipment that we're not going to go over the armor standards or the weight and shapes of the weapons are going to be today. Okay, equipment. Each fighter's equipment must meet the requirements set forth in the IMCF Equipment Specifications document. Belt numbers are mandatory. Now, belt numbers are a number like a uniform number in a major sport.
Yeah, like a jersey.
Only they're hung off of your belt, off of a little flag or a favor. It could be cloth, leather. I've seen it made out of chainmail, but something that can be easily seen by the referees and other people to identify you, because we've all got helmets and we can't see your faces.
So what is it called?
Belt numbers.
Belt number?
Yeah, numbers hung off your belt. It's not allowed to share, swap, or change them during the tournament. The use of tabards or sashes are mandatory for all categories. A tabard is basically a poncho, usually belted or laced up the side. There are other styles of such a thing that can be called things like jupons and surcoats, but that's basically like your uniform, your jersey, that identifies your team. And some people, their armor's too fancy to wear a surcoat, but they can wear a sash instead, and that sash has to be at least 15 centimeters wide and have the same colors as the tabard of the team or country to which the fighters belong, depending upon whether we're in an international tournament in rural parts of countries, or in some kind of tournament in which we're in teams, not necessarily representing our country. The belt flag numbers of each fighter on the team must be recorded on the roster during the official registration period. There's generally a period of weeks before a tournament in which teams register, and they have to register all their fighters by their name and their number that they're going to be wearing on their belt. Any changes must be communicated by the national representative or team captain at least 2 weeks prior to the event. And final equipment rule is back straps are mandatory for all group categories. A back strap is a strap on the back of your helmet that connects to the back of your armor. This is because we've had days in which without that, helmets are more likely to fall off. This is bad. For one particular tournament in which we had a half dozen helmets fall off, the last one that fell off of a guy named Simon, who fell onto someone's knee armor and fractured his skull. And if he weren't a mutant with an extra thick skull, he might be dead. I would have been dead. But he survived. And so now a lot of people call the back strap a Simon strap. In the melee, it's required to have that strap and to have that strap buckled when you go into the field so your helmet's less likely to fall off. Weapons, and in case you're wondering, yes, people have gotten hit in the head after their helmets fell off. Fortunately, no fatalities. That's why we're all. Okay, item 2, weapons. All weapons and shields used in group categories must meet and conform to the standards set forth in the IMCF weapons specifications document, which we will go over in 2 weeks. Weapons may be fitted with a historic lanyard for group fights only. Now, a lanyard would be a strap that goes from the weapon to your wrist, so that if you lose your grip, it's still there hanging onto your arm. Right? However, when you enter a melee, you may not enter with your weapon hanging freely. A hanging weapon is considered a disarm, as in you've been disarmed. You don't have your weapon. And fighters cannot continue fighting until they take back their weapon. If the weapon breaks, the fighter will be forced to sit down if he picks up another weapon without disengaging the broken fragment of their weapon. Okay, we'll get more into when you don't have a weapon, you're not allowed to fight. If you've got a fragment of a weapon, that's like you have no weapon. But it's worse to have it. But having a fragment of a weapon, you can swing it, even if you've got another weapon. You can swing it around, and the splinters from the wood could get in someone's eye. So yeah, if your weapon breaks, you gotta take it off and pick up another one. And since you can't take off your gauntlets, because then you can't take off your gauntlets in the middle of the field. And once you step out of the field, you can't go back in the field. And no one can help you. No one without gauntlets can reach into the field. So you're basically in a sucks to be you situation. So now you know. Weapons that fit within the long and two-handed specification cannot be used with shields. Now, this is not the kind of... God, can you go back there and bring out a real shield? Yeah. Okay, now, shields are usually this size, right? Well, shields are all kinds of sizes, okay? But you can't use a shield to defend yourself and have a two-handed weapon at the same time. There is an exception, though, and the exception is if you've got a buckler that's a small shield about the size of a pot lid that can be strapped to your hand. That can be there as extra hand protection. All right. Disciplinary actions and appeals. All disciplinary actions and appeals procedure are set forth in the IMCF Disciplinary Action and Appeals document. We'll go over that in 2 weeks. Here you go. All right, that's right. This is a small shield known as a punching shield. Okay, you'll notice some shields are bigger. This is for practice sparring here, and some shields are small. So you're not allowed to go into battle like this. All right. If you got one of these, you got to have a single-handed weapon with you. All right. If you use that weapon, you don't have a weapon, so you can't fight. We'll get into that. Okay, thank you. Next, Cornermen. Okay, first off, the melee field is usually a rectangle, and one team lines up on one side and one team lines up on the other. Cornermen are like in boxing. They're men or women or anything else that are by the sideline, outside the ring, or the list as we call it, to assist the fighters inside. Each team is allowed to bring up to 3 cornermen for the fight. For World Championships, your national team can have a flag bearer, and that person is not considered a cornerman. By the way, if I use gender-specific pronouns, ignore them. Pretend I'm including all genders. Cornermen are allowed to provide fighters with water, repair kit, and substitute equipment. Only cornermen are allowed to repair or exchange fighters' equipment. Marshals are not, that's the referees, are not allowed to repair or exchange fighters' equipment unless the team doesn't have cornermen. So in between rounds, you can say, oh, my knee armor's coming off, and it's got to be the guy who's already there, who's got the kit, who fixes your armor on the spot. We'll get into details about how much time they have to do it. They can't fix it while the fight's going on because they're not allowed in, and if you step out, you're out. We'll get into what to do when your armor breaks, what rules are in the rules. Regulations for group categories. In the event that during a tournament situations arise that are not mentioned in these regulations, a meeting will be held with the captains, night marshals, and marshals' council members present at the tournament to agree on a rule for this purpose. Board of Directors members will be included if needed. Group categories are held in a list of the following size. By length, 15 to 40 meters. By width, 7 to 20 meters. The height of the sides of the lists, that's a fence, will be from 1.2 to 1.3 meters. The width, some fences will have tabletops like this. The width of them is no more than 60 centimeters, no less than 60 centimeters. Bottom rails, that is bars that are lower to the ground than a certain height. There's your top, your middle, bottom, not allowed. That's to allow fighters to go in and out, fighters who are grounded to get out quicker. The head marshal invites 2 teams to list, then asks 2 other teams to prepare for combat. 3 versus 3 are conducted with teams of 3 to 5 fighters, 3 active and 2 reserve. 5 versus 5 are conducted with teams of 5 to 8 fighters, 5 active in the ring and 3 reserve fighters. 5 versus 5 are conducted with teams of 5 to 8 fighters, 5 active and 3 reserve. 10 versus 10 are conducted with teams of 10 to 15 fighters, 10 active and 5 reserve. 16 versus 16 are conducted with teams of 16 to 21 combatants, 16 active and 5 reserve. The reserve fighters must remain outside the list barrier and able to provide backup weapons or armor. They may substitute the active fighters day to day with any frequency and any number between the rounds or matches. Meaning, basically free substitutions between rounds. When a fighter loses a weapon and comes over to get a weapon, they can be handed a weapon by one of the substitute fighters, and the specific rules about that will come in. Fighters may participate in the group categories as mercenaries for any other team only if. Now, a mercenary is someone who's not a regular part of the team, but comes in and fights with the team. And these arrangements are usually made in advance. There ain't no rule against any kind of compensation for this, but that doesn't mean you're automatically going to get it if you ask for it. It's between, some teams will actually offer beer. We'll put you up in a hotel room. We'll pay you money. Other teams are like, thank you so much. We really needed your help. But if you just want to go and fight and you're not part of a team, then that's how you can get into fighting. All right. Fighters may participate in group categories as mercenaries only if they were properly registered with the team they're mercenaries with, like I was talking about registration. They're not registered with their home team for that tournament, for that category. That is, if they're part of a team that showed up that day and they can't be part of that team for that particular category, say it's 3x3s or 5x5s, if they're going to be working for another team in that particular category, the 3x3s, the 5x5s, whatever. Now it's kind of written a little funny here, and I got questions, so just go with it. We'll have answers next week. For mercenaries, women's 3 versus 3. 1 mercenary at a maximum. That means you can have up to 5 fighters, 3 in the field, 2 out, but only one of them can be a merc. Women's only 5 versus 5. That is only in the women's 5 versus 5. You've got 2 mercenaries as a maximum. A 5 versus 5 can have an 8-person team. Up to 2 of them can be mercs. 10 versus 10, men or women. 3 mercenaries at maximum. 16 versus 16, men or women. 4 mercenaries as a maximum. The male 5 versus 5 does not allow mercenaries. So that means up to 8, the team can have up to 8 men on it, but all of them have to be regularly part of that team. All mercenaries must enter the list with the tabard or sash of the team or country under which they are fighting. For alliances, that's if 2 teams are not big enough to, say, get into a 10-man melee, but they want to get into a 10-man melee, they can form an alliance. It is established that alliances are allowed, if it is established that alliances are allowed. Not every tournament may allow alliances. They may only be formed for the 10 versus 10 and the 16 for 16 categories. Unless it is officially announced prior to the tournament that alliances may be formed in a category other than those previously mentioned. Okay, so a tournament can take exceptions to these rules. It is mandatory that all fighters in the same alliance are wearing their home country tabard and same colored sashes, large enough to be easily identified. The sash must be of a color that is different from colors used by the tabards of the countries that form that alliance. So if one team is red and blue, another team is purple and gold, then your sash has got to be green and black or something like that. There's no maximum number of countries that can form an alliance. Ooh, you could run out of colors real quick there. There's no maximum, for 10 versus 10, the maximum number of fighters from different countries in an alliance is 12 plus 3 mercenaries, so that's 15. In case of not having mercenaries, the maximum amount is 15. For 16 versus 16, the maximum number of fighters from different countries in an alliance is 17 plus 4 mercenaries. In case of not having mercenaries, the maximum amount is 21. All right, let me just take a quick sip. Any questions so far what we got going on? Yes, no, maybe? Anyone bored yet?
No,
Please.
we're listening.
Okay. Anyway, the way it works, here's how the tournament works. 2 teams will be invited. There may be however many teams there are, 2, 5, 12, however many teams there are. 2 teams are invited for a melee, and they shall come to a designated place near the list being the field, the ring. The marshals perform the functions of the authenticity and technical committee of the event. In this sport, one of the rules is your armor and your weapons have to be analogous to actual things that actually existed. So you can't just make up some fantasy thing and walk in with your tournament, walk into the tournament. That's part of the game. We're here to actually figure out discover, recreate what it was like to fight in medieval armor as knights in a tournament. So you wouldn't have a helmet that looked like Darth Vader. Yeah. But you might have a nice German sallet, which evokes the aesthetic of Darth Vader's helmet. See? So that's your workaround. Yeah. Although it was actually inspired by a Japanese
It's
helmet.
different type of helmets though, right?
What? Oh yeah, there's all different kinds of helmets. This is called the bassinet with a bulbous visor. Notice that the visor opens like so, and is contemporary to like the very early 1400s. But you can go as far back to about 1300 in the armor, as far forward as about 1500, and that's what we'll be going over in 2 weeks. So and also they'll be making sure you got your chin strap on, that you're covered where you're supposed to be covered, which is the whole body. Yeah.
So back then, did they do like fights like this recreationally too, and not like just for like actual battles?
Absolutely. In fact, it was as long as there have been people fighting, there have been people fighting for sport. Okay, and when they fought in swords, they fought with swords for sport. Yeah. And the sport evolved back then to what we see. Yes, the tournament was very much a thing. Okay, so they go through the inspection to make sure that the armor's all, fit and right and whatnot. Then, all back straps must be fastened before the round begins. If a strap opens up while the fight is still going, it will not be considered as an armor failure, and the fighter will be allowed to continue, but once the round is over, the fighter will have to get the strap closed. And the same procedure applies for sabatons. Sabatons are foot armor. Invited teams must appear at the list within 1 minute. The fighters may not leave the list once they have been checked and before the start of the melee to prevent the possibility of substitution unless they fail inspection. If the fighters appear on the list later than 3 minutes after they've been invited, or they come unprepared, the opposing team is awarded a technical victory. When a team withdraws during the tournament, and not before the tournament begins, and gives up the fight or round, or if the team did not show up the list within the established time, the score per round will be determined by category, 3-0, 5-0, 10-0, or 16-0. Between rounds, there's a maximum time of 1 minute. Fighters will be sat down if they're not ready once the time is up. So if you're still trying to get your chin strap on, time's up, ready to fight, no, wait, I'm out. Okay, you gotta sit down. Or if you got knocked down in the previous round and you can't get up in time to fight again, or you can't get out of the ring, you're stuck there. It's another sucks to be you kind of thing. All right. The points, the head marshal will provide a 30 seconds warning to both teams before the minute ends. Once the minute is up, the head marshal confirms the readiness of the field marshals and the fighters. The field marshals and line marshals in charge of the armor check at the list gates must make sure that the number of fighters who entered the list is correct according to the category, 3, 5, 10, or 16. Now, we do need more marshals. We need more referees, people to be referees. So if you're not fighting that day, or if you've got an injury, please be ready to be a referee. Read these rules, learn them, and even if once you start training with us, you put on the armor and say, oh, this is not for me, you can still come and do the physical, do the technique, and pay it back by being a referee, among other things. Points for the round are scored at the rate of 1 point for each fighter legally standing. The head marshal signals the start of the melee, giving the command fight. The officials dealing with the video observation observe the melee in their sectors of the list while staying behind the barrier. They record for the violations they see, but do not interfere in the course of the melee except for immediate safety issues. The field marshals observe the melee in the list, moving along it, and monitor compliance with the rules. The field marshals can bring those who are withdrawn from the melee for violation of the rules back to the action, as well as separate inactive clinches that last more than 5 seconds. The marshals observe the general course of the fight and assess the interaction of the teams and fighters in the list. A raised hand with an open palm is a sign of voluntarily leaving the battle. So if your armor falls off or you just decided, I can't take it anymore, you raise your hand, palm out, you're out. No one can hit you. A fighter raising a hand with an open palm and kneeling on one knee, if you can, it might be too crowded to do so, is automatically considered out of the fight and cannot rejoin the fight. For inactive clinches, that's when two fighters are stuck together, but no one's actually trying to do anything. Field marshals may pull the fighters apart, give the command, break! After this, the fighters must stop fighting immediately and step apart from each other. An additional command, fight, is given. This command serves as an additional signal that the battle is still going on, both in general and for the fighters who are in the clinch. The local commands of break and fight are only for the fighters in the clinch. After the command fight, a fighter can continue the battle against their opponent or run away and attack someone else. The round is finished after the command of the head marshal, stop fight. I like to also have a whistle on the field because voices don't carry as well as whistles, except for this guy. The group, and I also carry a yellow flag, they carry yellow sticks, or yellow and black stripe sticks, or sticks with yellow flags. and they put them in between fighters who are fighting. If you see a yellow thing flap in front of your face, it's either the sleeve of someone on the German team because they have yellow shirts, or it's a flag, or stop fighting. Okay, yeah, stop fight. The group fight is stopped when all the fighters on the opposing team have been taken down, or the numerical difference is 60% or more. A victory is awarded with the score 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, whatever it is. All the fighters on one side are down, all the fighters are up. 1, 2, 3, that's how many are up. Winning team gets that, losing team gets 0. Except, if the numerical difference in a 3x3 melee is 3 versus 1, the score is 3-1. If the numerical difference in a 5 versus 5 melee is 3 or more versus 1, it's that to 1. Once it's 3 to 1 or more, we stop. Once it's 60% or more, we stop. So if it's 10 versus 10, then if it winds up at 10 versus 4, we stop. Or 9 versus 3, or 7 versus 2, or 6 versus, or anything below 6 versus 1, we stop at that. So that way you won't have like 2 fighters on one side and 14 fighters on the other. No, that's not going to happen. At the end of the round, the fighters remain standing or on the ground, depending on their status, standing or on the ground, depending upon the status at the head marshal's command, stop fight, so that the round may be scored. Don't get up when he says stop, stay there. At the head marshal's command, all rise, fighters return to their original positions on the list. The matches are won by the best 2 of 3 rounds. In the case of a draw, the match continues until 2 victories. The maximum number of rounds is 5. So if the team that defeats all rival fighters first earns a victory in the round. So if after 2 rounds, like one team won 1 round, one team won the other, you fight a 3rd round. If no team wins that, you fight a 4th, you fight a 5th. If it's still 1-1 by the time you get to the 5th round, or 0-0 because it was a tie, or whatever it is, then, or at the end of 5th round, it's still 1-0, the team with 1 wins. Each round lasts not more than 5 minutes. Now that's new. It used to be some organizations used 8 minutes. Some new organizations use no time limit. So it's rare that a fight lasts that long. So it doesn't come into play much. But now, the IMCF uses 5-minute rounds. And the total designated for each fight is 15 minutes. So the round, 5 times 3 is 15. At the end of each round, the team with the most fighters standing on their feet at the head of the marshal's command of stop fight wins the round. If the time per round runs out, the number of fighters is equal, it's a draw, and both teams will have to prepare for the next round. If the total amount of time designated for the complete fight runs out before a winner is declared, the victory will be decided by points. 5-2, 10-7, that sort of thing. The field marshal comes to the head marshal and reports any observed violations. Oh yeah, unlike in the duels, where we count total number of points scored over the 2 rounds that have been fought, and if there's no winner, the 3 or the 4 as it calls. Here, it's the round. Pretend you got it to a point where one team got more points, but the other team won 2 rounds. It's the team that won 2 rounds, like the Electoral College. All right, the field marshals. The field marshals come to the head marshal after every round and report any observed violations. Relying on the reports of the field marshals as well as the head marshal's own observations, the head marshal decides on the result of the round. After that, the head marshal considers the protests, if any, announces the result of the round and gives the verbal warnings, yellow or red cards to the fighters if required. The secretary must record the following results of the round. That's another thing we don't have in Central Park, secretary, someone who will actually record the things on paper. I've been doing that, and I'm walking around as head referee and announcer with a clipboard in my hand. So a clipboard's likely to come down on your face. Victor of the round score, the number of fighters on both teams remaining in melee at the end of the round. Any disciplinary actions performed during the round, and the rules will get to that. And the secretariat duties include being the timekeepers of the fight. So the secretary could be the person keeping time. I'd like to try to have two different people so that you don't have to say, wait a minute, I'm running out of time to write this down. So I'd like to have two people doing that. And when we do our tournaments in Central Park. Okay, now let's see. We finally got to the point where we actually get to the rules of what you're allowed to do. But it's 2 o'clock. And some people want to train here, and we don't have a lot of people. So I'm going to put it up to a vote here. Do we want to actually continue going through the rules here, or would we like to start some training?
Training.
Okay then. So cats and kits, we will continue with the actual rules of the melee next week.
All right.
Thank you very much for watching. Captain Zorik is coming at you.